List does not include my amendment 1932, a bill you, Mr. President, and I have worked on, a bill the Majority Leader has voted for. This amendment, it's so simple. It professionalizes how the military prosecutes serious crimes. Serious crimes like sexual assault, rape, murder. It removes the systemic fear that survivors have in reporting these crimes. According to the Pentagon's most recent survey, almost 21,000 service members were sexually assaulted in 2018, a 30% increase from the year before. And the current climate is not good for survivors. Currently, most survivors are retaliated against when they come forward and report these crimes. In fact, the rate of retaliation is at 2/3 of all survivors, unchanged from past years. And worse than that, of the cases that the command considered for action, of those unique few, only 10% of those went to trial. Year after year, we have hearings. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ranking Member, we have hearings. And commanders, generals come forward and say, ma'am, we've got this. Let us take care of this. We've got this. We know what we're doing. We understand. We're going to take this crime so seriously. We're going to prosecute these cases. Leave it to us. We know what we're doing. It's infuriating. They think they know what they're doing, or they're just lying to us. It's one or the other. But either way, they're failing. The failure rate is so high. 20,000 rapes last year. Less than 10% going to trial of the small number that are even considered. The rate of conviction is going down. So no measurable in the entire system of military justice for these survivors is getting better. Not one aspect. We've got this, ma'am. Leave it to us. It's just not true. They don't have it. They never have. And if they don't look themselves in the mirror and recognize their failures, they never will. Year after year, thousands of service members are raped and sexually assaulted, and assailants are not held accountable. It's not just a few bad apples. In many of those cases, the assailant is someone in the survivor's chain of command, the same chain of command that decides the case. They pick the judges, the juries, the prosecutors, and the defense counsel. That's the system. That system is so weighted that if a commander has a view before they go in, your chance of success is very little. There's no other judicial system in America that would ever allow this to happen. And that commander is not even trained. He's not a prosecutor. He's not a lawyer. This system is not delivering justice. People in the military do not have the benefit of civil liberties because of this. They don't get justice. They've never had it, and they never will. This amendment, this bipartisan and common sense reform, leaves the majority of uniquely military crimes within the chain of command. It would only remove the decision-making over whether to prosecute serious crimes to independent, trained, unbiased, military, impartial prosecutors. It is the Senate's job to provide the oversight and accountability to the U.S. military. We owe our U.S. service members everything. Every year that we don't address this fundamental scourge, it's another year we are failing them. I've asked for a vote, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Ranking Member, for 5 years in a row. This is the 5th year I'm denied a vote. It's the 5th year you are saying to our service members, you don't care, and you don't want to fix the system. We've tried every small ball reform you can imagine, every study, every panel, every recommendation. We have made sure those recommendations go in the underlying bill every year. They're just not working. So I'd like us to look ourselves in the mirror and say, are we doing our job? Are we standing by our service members when they need us? And sadly, the answer is no. So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to modify your request to include Amendment 1932, to just get a vote on it.
Does the senator so modify his request?
Reserving the right to object, let me just make a comment first. This is the first step. We have a lot of things happening after this. We're going to be on the Senate floor, hours and hours. You'll have ample time to entertain your amendment, and I would be very happy to assist you in that. For that reason, I would not want to jeopardize those 60 names of amendments that I've already passed to jeopardize their efforts by adding your language, and so I do object.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will release my objection, and I look forward to working with you on the floor.
Is there objection to the original request? Without objection, so ordered. Under the order just entered, the 33 amendments are now pending, and the question now occurs on those amendments. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The amendments are agreed to en bloc.
Mr. President.
The Majority Leader.
I send a cloture motion to the desk for the substitute amendment 2301.
The clerk will report the cloture motion.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on amendment number 2301 to calendar number 483, S4049, an original bill to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2021 for military activities and so forth and for other purposes, signed by 17 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I send a cloture motion to the desk for the underlying bill.
The clerk will report the cloture motion.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on calendar number 483, S4049, an original bill to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2021 for military activities of the Department of Defense and so forth and for other purposes, signed by 17 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I ask consent the mandatory quorum calls for the cloture motions be waived.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that notwithstanding Rule 22, the cloture motions ripen following disposition of the Tester Amendment number 1972 as modified.
Without objection.
President.
The senator from Missouri.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to speak for 5 minutes.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to add my amendment number 2352 to the list of amendments to be voted on under the previous agreement.
Is there objection? Objection is heard.
Mr. President, 3 weeks ago, my colleagues across the aisle tried to pull a fast one on the American people. Behind closed doors, with no public hearings, no public debate, they decided that some of the names of our nation's military bases must be removed, stripped, replaced, erased, and they decided that war memorials to fallen soldiers should come down. I objected to that effort then, and I object to it now. The national defense legislation that we are considering, the legislation that funds our military and protects our citizens, should not be turned into a vehicle for cancel culture. The cancel culture that I think you know what I mean. The cancel culture that is tearing down statues of George Washington and Ulysses S. Grant, Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt now, for heaven's sakes. This cancel movement seeks to divide us, not unite, to erase our history rather than to reckon with it, to turn away from our long and shared struggle to forge a more perfect union. and instead to build an entirely different America on a kind of woke fundamentalism. Mr. President,